He wasn't attacked. He wasn't robbed by force. A billionaire was found dead in a luxury hotel room, the door locked, the room spotless, his money gone, and the people responsible never planned to kill him. No one noticed the pattern at first. That was the brilliance of it. Billionaires moved differently from everyone else. They stayed in different hotels, flew on different planes, lived behind security gates and tinted glass. When something happened to them, people assumed it was business, stress, or indulgence. A missed meeting, a canceled appearance, a quiet hotel checkout handled by staff who signed non-disclosure agreements. And so, when the first billionaire woke up confused, lighter by several $1 million, and unable to explain how it happened, no alarms were raised. He blamed himself. That was always how it started. The three friends met years earlier, long before the money. They were different in background, similar in hunger. One was observant and calm, the planner. One was charming and disarming, the door opener. One was precise with numbers, the finisher. They never spoke about crime at first. They spoke about access, about how billionaires trusted people who didn't fear them, about how wealth had made some men careless, lonely, and eager to feel admired. It started as a conversation. Then it became an experiment. Their method was simple, and that simplicity was what made it dangerous. They targeted only the extremely wealthy, men whose bank alerts were constant, men whose nights were spent in hotel suites far from home. They never forced entry, never threatened, never used violence. They were invited. A drink, a laugh, a sense of comfort. By morning, the billionaire would wake up alone, disoriented, his accounts drained in ways too complex to reverse quickly. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no immediate crime scene, just confusion and embarrassment. And embarrassment is powerful. Most never reported it. Over time, the friends refined their approach. They learned how billionaires moved money, which transactions wouldn't raise alarms, how long they had before security teams noticed irregularities. They stayed disciplined. One rule above all others: no one gets hurt. They told themselves this repeatedly until they believed it, and for a long time, it worked. Across the country, isolated incidents surfaced. A hedge fund founder in New York quietly reimbursed himself and said nothing. A tech billionaire in California blamed exhaustion. A real estate magnate in Florida dismissed it as a lapse in judgment. Different cities, different hotels, different victims, but the same silence, until one name broke that silence forever. His wealth was old, layered, and discreet, not the kind that chased headlines. He was known in financial circles as cautious, almost boring, a man who trusted numbers more than people, which made his death impossible to ignore. He checked into the hotel under his real name. That alone was unusual. He arrived without an entourage, no visible security, no assistance, just a man carrying decades of wealth and a quiet need to disappear for a night. The hotel staff remembered him because he was polite, and because he never checked out. Housekeeping found him the next afternoon. The room was pristine, no signs of struggle, no broken items. No forced entry, just a billionaire lying still on white sheets, the city breathing beneath the windows. The official cause would take time, but what stood out immediately was this: his accounts had been emptied hours before his death. That was when the pattern changed, because money could be explained, but death could not. When the case reached federal hands, it landed on the desk of a woman who didn't believe in coincidences. She was sharp-eyed, methodical, and known for one thing inside the bureau. She followed patterns other people ignored, and as she studied the billionaire's timeline, one detail unsettled her. There were no signs of violence, just a body, and missing millions. She pulled old reports, unreported complaints, bank anomalies, closed hotel incidents dismissed as personal matters. And slowly, something emerged. Not a spree, a system, different cities, different dates, but the same outcome. Rich men waking up poorer, until one didn't wake up at all. The friends didn't know it yet. But the moment that billionaire died, their story was no longer about theft. It had become a murder investigation, and someone was finally watching. He had checked into hotels like this hundreds of times before. Same height, same silence, same view that made cities look harmless. Luxury suites were designed to make powerful men feel invisible. No neighbors, no questions, no interruptions unless requested. For him, it was familiar comfort, a place where wealth erased friction. That night was supposed to be forgettable. The billionaire had spent his life avoiding attention. He wasn't loud money. He wasn't reckless money. He was patient money. He built his fortune by buying what others overlooked and holding it until it mattered. Rail lines, data centers, logistics companies buried in footnotes of balance sheets. He trusted systems, not people, which was why loneliness followed him everywhere. People wanted something from him. Employees wanted approval. Partners wanted leverage. Strangers wanted proximity to his power. He learned early that admiration was rarely genuine. That night, he wanted to feel normal. He arrived alone. No security detail, no assistant, no advance call to staff. He signed in under his real name because he was tired of hiding behind shell identities. Because sometimes even billionaires want to be seen, just not exposed. The clerk noticed how calm he was, not rushed, not distracted, just quiet. He went upstairs, placed his jacket on a chair, and stood by the window for a long time, watching traffic move like veins beneath him. He didn't know it yet, but he was already being watched. The three friends didn't know his name at first. They noticed patterns before faces: expensive watch, relaxed posture, no visible security, a man who ordered room service instead of dining out. That combination meant something: opportunity. They followed the rules they'd followed every time before. Slow approach, no pressure. Let him choose. He did. The conversation felt easy. Too easy. That was always the danger. They spoke about travel, about cities blurring together when you lived out of a suitcase, about how money solved problems but created distance. They laughed at small things. Nothing forced, nothing memorable. That was the point. When people remembered you, they remembered details. They made sure there were none. Back in the room, the billionaire felt relaxed. He sat instead of standing, listened more than he spoke. For the first time in weeks, he wasn't thinking about acquisitions or liabilities. He wasn't calculating risk. He wasn't anticipating betrayal. He trusted the moment. That was his mistake. Later, the memories would blur. That was also familiar. He had experienced disorientation before. Jet lag, exhaustion, stress. This felt similar, heavy, slow, like the room was drifting farther away from him. He didn't panic. He never panicked. The last thing he noticed was how quiet everything became. When the friends left, he was breathing. That mattered to them. They checked. They waited. They told themselves this part was routine. The transfer was clean. The exits were smooth. No alarms, no resistance. Another successful night. They didn't look back. Morning came, and he didn't wake up. Housekeeping knocked, then knocked again, then called it in. Security arrived first, then paramedics, then management. The room was sealed before panic could spread. Everything looked normal. That was what disturbed them. The billionaire lay exactly where he had been left. No overturned furniture, no broken glass, no struggle. His face was calm, as if sleep had simply gone too far. When investigators later reconstructed the timeline, one detail would haunt everyone involved. He had died hours after the money was taken. Not instantly, not violently, slowly, alone. The autopsy would confirm there was no sign of assault, no external trauma, no forced ingestion, no defensive wounds, just a body that shut down quietly. That made it harder. Because accidental death was easy to dismiss, but this wasn't an accident. It was the consequence of a system that assumed control. The friends found out through the news, a headline buried beneath market updates. A prominent investor found dead in hotel suite. They stared at the screen longer than they should have. Then came the rationalizations. He was old. He had health issues. This had never happened before. They repeated the words they'd always relied on. We never meant to hurt anyone. But meaning stopped mattering the moment he died. The woman at the bureau received the case file late that afternoon. She read it twice, once as protocol, once as instinct. What unsettled her wasn't the death, it was the money, because it had moved with precision, not panic, not chaos. Someone had known exactly what they were doing. She flagged the case, then she asked for hotel surveillance, and that was when the real story began. The room told no story. That was the problem. Investigators were trained to read chaos. Overturned furniture, broken glass, blood where it shouldn't be. But the Billionaire's suite offered nothing like that. It was quiet, controlled, almost respectful, too clean for a death that made sense. The bed was smooth, except for a single indentation. The glasses on the table were aligned. The door lock showed no tampering. It looked like someone had simply stopped. The first report leaned toward natural causes. It would have been easy to close the case. Wealthy men died alone in hotel rooms more often than people liked to admit. Stress, age, private habits. None of it raised eyebrows unless something was visibly wrong. But something was wrong. The timing. The medical examiner confirmed the billionaire hadn't died immediately. His body shut down slowly. Hours passed between the moment he was last conscious and the moment his heart stopped. No trauma, no signs of struggle, just a system overwhelmed quietly. That detail changed everything, because it meant someone had been there and left. The FBI agent stood over the report longer than necessary. She wasn't looking for drama. She was looking for sequence. Money moved first. Life ended later. That order mattered. She pulled financial logs, transfers that bypassed usual safeguards, amounts that stayed just below automated alerts, accounts routed through layers designed to slow investigations, not stop them. This wasn't a random theft. It was practiced. She widened the scope, requested files from other jurisdictions, hotels, banks, private security firms. At first, nothing connected. Then small similarities began to appear. A missing hour here, a delayed report there, a wealthy man embarrassed enough to stay quiet. The same shape, repeated. Some of the earlier men had survived. They'd woken disoriented, ashamed, unable to explain what had happened without exposing themselves. So they said nothing. They absorbed the loss. That silence had protected the system, until death broke it. The agent requested hotel surveillance, not just the billionaire's floor. Every camera, every angle, every hallway. The footage didn't show violence. It showed routine. Guests moving in and out. Staff pushing carts. Nothing remarkable. Then she slowed it down, frame by frame. 3 figures entered the elevator late that night. They weren't together. Not obviously. But they shared timing, a pause, a glance, a pattern trained eyes could recognize. They exited on the same floor. The agent rewound, ran it again, then again, and again. She pulled footage from other hotels, different cities, different dates, the same choreography, separate arrivals, shared exits. No interaction caught on camera, professionally invisible. She felt it then. Not certainty, recognition. The deaths weren't the starting point. They were the end of a long, careful routine. Meanwhile, the three friends were unraveling. They tried to stay disciplined. No contact, no panic, no deviation. But fear is loud. Every siren sounded personal. Every knock felt final. They began to notice things they had once ignored. Cameras, staff faces, time stamps, things they had trusted themselves not to think about. The agent requested facial recognition, limited scope, legal clearance, enough to confirm movement, not identity. The results didn't give her names, but they gave her consistency. The same faces, again, and again, and again. She brought the team together, spread the footage across screens, hotels in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami, different locations, same people, same behavior, same exits. "This isn't chance," she said quietly. "It's a system." Arrests weren't immediate. She needed proof strong enough to survive court. Patterns alone weren't enough. She followed the money. One transfer cracked under scrutiny. A routing error. A moment of speed over caution. It pointed somewhere it shouldn't have, and from there, everything began to fall. The friends didn't know they'd made a mistake. Not yet. They still believed the death had been bad luck. They still believed silence would save them. But the moment the billionaire died, the rules changed, and the system that protected them had already turned against them. She didn't rush. That was what made her dangerous. While others wanted arrests, headlines, and closure, she wanted something else. Certainty. A case that wouldn't collapse under pressure. A story that could survive courtrooms, media scrutiny, and time. She had learned early that patterns were fragile, unless anchored to proof. Money was proof. The first account she traced didn't belong to the dead billionaire. It belonged to one who had survived. He had never filed a police report, never spoken publicly, never admitted what happened. But the numbers told his story for him, a sudden transfer, a carefully chosen amount. A delay in discovery that matched the same timeline as the death. She mapped them all. Not names, flows, where money left, where it paused, where it fractured into smaller streams. Someone had designed this to confuse algorithms, not people. That was the mistake. Algorithms look for speed. Humans look for intent. The routing error from the billionaire's final night was small. A fraction of a second. A misaligned authorization. But it exposed a bridge between accounts that had appeared separate. From there, she pulled warrants. Then more. Each signature tightened the net. The friends felt it before they saw it. Bank holds, delayed access, unexpected reviews, nothing dramatic. Just friction. They told themselves it was coincidence. They were wrong. The agent compared timestamps, hotel check-ins, elevator footage, transfer initiations. The alignment was precise, too precise for chance. She found the hotels next. Luxury chains, high floors, suites near service elevators, places where privacy was sold as a feature. CCTV footage was the final key. She didn't look for faces at first. She looked for behavior. Who arrived alone, who left separately, who never appeared in staff logs but showed up on cameras. The same three figures appeared again and again, always calm, always unremarkable, always leaving before dawn. When she finally requested full identification, it felt almost anticlimactic. Names appeared on the screen. Ordinary. No criminal history. No red flags. No obvious desperation. That unsettled her more than violence ever could. They weren't reckless. They were methodical. And that made the death even more damning. She waited. Let the evidence mature. Because rushed arrests created martyrs. Prepared arrests created convictions. The day she signed the final warrants, she didn't celebrate. She reread the autopsy report. The billionaire's time of death. The gap between loss of consciousness and final shutdown. hours, alone. That space weighed on her, because intention didn't erase outcome. The arrests happened in different cities. Same hour. No warning. Doors opened. Hands raised. Lives paused. No chase, no resistance, just shock. Interrogations began immediately. The friends told the same story they had told themselves. They never planned to kill anyone. They had done this before. No one had ever died. They repeated it like a shield. The agent listened, didn't interrupt, didn't argue. Then she placed the photo on the table. The billionaire, still, silent. "This is when it stopped being about intent," she said, "and started being about responsibility." None of them spoke after that. News broke within hours, not the details, just the headline. 3 arrested in connection with Billionaires' hotel death. Markets barely reacted. But something shifted. Because the public wasn't shocked that a billionaire died, they were shocked by how easily he had been reduced to a victim. The agent closed her file late that night, but she didn't feel finished, because the case wasn't really about theft or even death. It was about what happens when systems built on silence finally collapse. Silence doesn't break all at once. It fractures. In interrogation rooms across different cities, the 3 friends sat under the same lights, answering the same questions, telling the same story in slightly different ways. They spoke carefully, chose words that distanced them from the outcome, returned again and again to the same sentence. They never meant to kill anyone. Intent became their refuge. The prosecutors didn't argue with that. They didn't need to, because intent didn't erase consequence. The evidence moved faster than emotion. Financial trails layered over surveillance. Hotel access logs aligned with timestamps. Patterns reinforced by repetition. It wasn't one night. It was years. When the full scope emerged, the numbers stunned even seasoned investigators. Dozens of victims, hundreds of millions moved. Cities linked only by money and silence. And at the center of it all, one death. Courtrooms filled quietly. No spectacle, no shouting. Just well-dressed attorneys and screens full of data. The billionaire's name was spoken less than expected, not out of respect, out of inevitability. Defense strategies collapsed one by one. They argued consent. They argued negligence. They argued coincidence. But systems don't repeat accidents. The moment that ended, everything came from one of them. Not a confession, a correction, a minor disagreement over timing. 5 minutes. That was all it took. Because 5 minutes rewrote the timeline, and timelines are unforgiving. The agent watched from the back of the room. She had done her job, but she felt no satisfaction. Only finality. Public reaction followed a familiar arc. Shock, judgment, distraction. People debated the morality of targeting the rich. They argued about sympathy. They moved on. But the case changed something quietly. Hotels adjusted policies. Banks tightened alerts. Wealth stopped feeling invisible. For the first time, billionaires saw themselves reflected not as untouchable figures, but as fragile ones. Sentencing took less time than expected. The court didn't dwell on motivation. It focused on outcome. Long years. No ambiguity. The words echoed through the room like a door closing. The friends were led away separately. They didn't look at each other. Whatever bond they had built had died earlier. In a hotel room none of them wanted to remember. The agent closed the final file weeks later. She placed it where resolved cases went. But she didn't forget the image that started it all. A man alone in a quiet room. Because the story wasn't really about criminals, or law enforcement, or even money. It was about the moment control becomes illusion. The billionaire was buried quietly. No cameras. No statements. No spectacle. Just a short service attended by people who knew his influence, not his loneliness. Business partners spoke of discipline. Analysts spoke of legacy. Few spoke of the night that ended everything. That part was left unsaid. His companies didn't collapse. Markets adjusted. Boards reorganized. Life, as it often does, continued. But something subtle changed. Security protocols tightened across private wealth circles. Executives asked different questions. Hotels adjusted access policies. Banks redefined what normal looked like for the ultra-rich. Not because of fear, because of recognition. The billionaire's death became a case study, not in crime textbooks, in risk meetings, because it proved something no one wanted to admit. That power does not equal protection. The FBI agent moved on to another case. Different faces, different crimes. But sometimes, late at night, she thought about timing, about the hours between when the money left and when the life ended, about how easily silence had disguised harm. The three friends disappeared into the system. No interviews, no redemption arcs, just time. They would have years to replay the same moment, the moment they walked away. The public forgot the details. They always did. But the story survived in fragments. A headline, a warning, a lesson no one announced. And that lesson was simple. You don't have to hate someone to destroy them. You don't have to intend harm to cause it. You only have to believe you're in control. The billionaire was never meant to die. That's what made his death matter, because it exposed a truth far bigger than theft or guilt. That systems built on silence eventually demand a price, and someone always pays it.